Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Deits Sports Talk. This is affiliated with National Sports on Spreaker.com. Today on tap, I have NFL and NBA as NFL. Alex Smith being benched, but what's the reason for him being benched? He didn't do anything wrong. And we'll go to the Eagles as well as Michael Vick does not pass his concussion test and will be most likely out this week in this NFL 13. As well, we also have Jason Babin getting released and then getting signed to the Jags. How big significance is that for the Jaguars as well? Let's go to the NBA as well. Rajon Rondo gets suspended for 2 games for the fight, as well as the Spurs are going to be benching 4 of their players. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manuel Ginobili, as well as plus key role player Danny Green. So interesting topics here tonight. This is only going to be a half an hour show. I'm your host, Robert Dieters, and I do have Nick Rice on the line. Hey Nick, how are you?
Doing great, man. Glad to be on.
Alright Nick, well, my first question, it's been on everyone's mind. Alex Smith is benched and not the starter for the Niners. Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised at all. Jim Harbaugh, in his days back at San Diego State, coaching throughout college, in the collegiate level, and in the pros, he showed that he knows his quarterbacks, and he was a quarterback himself with the Indianapolis Colts years ago. So right now, Colin Kaepernick is the lead man for San Francisco, and honestly, I think the Niners made a tremendous decision. In the heat of 49ers the faithful, and their pressure on why Alex Smith, the guy that's been there all year, has not started, in all that heat, he's still going with Colin Kaepernick, the guy that I believe is the man of the future, and the guy that right now is frankly playing better football. Alex Smith, in the games that he wins, he's credited with an 8-2-1 mark, even though a couple of those wins have come in Kaepernick starts. But right now, Alex Smith, in the games that he has won, he has gotten extreme help from his defense and running game. And, Harbaugh has a great problem here with 2 guys that can send him to the Super Bowl, but no one wants to recognize that the struggles of Alex Smith, especially in the playoffs, going 1 for 13 in the NFC Championship game. Let's face it, guys, Colin Kaepernick is the man of the future. He has the better arm, and he certainly can make plays in the pocket and on his feet that Alex Smith cannot make. So just alone, in a new era of quarterbacks, guys like Cam Newton and Robert Griffin, the new name of the game is running with the football and making plays on your feet. Ben Roethlisberger as well leads the NFL in third down conversions, and that's because he can make plays with his feet. And boy, would you have liked to have Alex Smith have that capability last year in the NFC Championship game. I believe Colin Kaepernick is the better guy moving forward. And for the future, he's the man that should be throwing the football. Harbaugh, he just pulled the trigger on that future earlier than expected.
But look, Alex Smith is your present right now. He bounced back from 2010, having a great season 2011. Unfortunately, in 2012, now that concussion gave Colin Kaepernick a chance to really prove himself in the NFL. But what's the sad part is, Bryce, tell me, did Smith do anything wrong?
Smith did nothing wrong to lose his job, but he is not the kind of quarterback that the Niners will play. Alex Smith is not as good of a quarterback as Colin Kaepernick. You see the throws that he's making against elite defenses. Chicago Bears ranked top 10 in that category, and they played the Saints as well as anybody. And New Orleans tried to make the playoffs, but San Francisco really put a stop into that. Obviously, San Francisco has 2 great quarterbacks, but Harbaugh has just been the benefit of what Alex Smith has been doing because he has really been listed by his defense and his running game. When in the 3 games, the 3 most points allowed by the defense, the Niners lose 2 of them and tie the other game. This, of course, this year, Rams, Vikings, Giants. The Niners are a great team, have a talented roster of the quarterback position. They've been playing the guy, at least for presumably this year, that is not the better quarterback. Alex Smith did nothing wrong, but all along, he's not as good of a quarterback as Colin Kaepernick. We'll see later on, guys, in the playoffs, Kaepernick will make the throws and the plays with his feet that Alex Smith could not make last year or this year.
So moving on from this, as they do have an easy schedule, but the Rams are the tie. And it was a game where, that was the game that Alex Smith got hurt, they'd tie. And when Colin Kaepernick really proved himself, kept the game. But when you look at the Rams, is this going to be a tough game for the Niners as well?
I believe that San Francisco will have some sort of a redemption, a bad taste in their mouth. And the fact that they play this team 2 times a year really helps Harbaugh get some film on them. And the fact that Kaepernick has now had some games under his feet, this team should be able to play better. And the other fact is, even though it's in St. Louis, the San Francisco 49ers, they do indeed match up very well against the St. Louis Rams that offensively really struggles passing the ball. San Francisco top 5 against the pass. This will be very interesting on how Sam Bradford plays. I believe that Kaepernick, just like beating Breeze in his own stadium, he'll beat Sam Bradford this weekend.
And so two notable injuries for the Niners, both season ending on the same play: Kyle Williams and Kendall Hunter. And that's really unfortunate right there, as well as Rams. Amendola is going to be out for this game against the Niners. Well, do you think those 3 play? I know Amendola probably is the most significant player as a wide receiver for the Rams. Is that going to affect the Rams in the passing game this weekend?
Yeah, that certainly will. With the departure of Brandon Lloyd as well, and they don't have Danny Amendola, that tough guy that can make the catches and runs after the catch. I believe in a passing offense that's already struggling this year, bottom 10 in that category, this offense has been one-dimensional, and when you don't have a receiver, a go-to guy, the receivers are guys picked up off the street and guys that really have not made plays this year for St. Louis. So overall, San Francisco has a huge edge. And now that they're backing behind their quarterback and Colin Kaepernick, I believe this is a game to lose for San Francisco, despite some key injuries in the offensive front.
And also, Sam Bradford has looked pretty good this season, despite the fact that a team has gone 4-6-1. Sam Bradford already has over 2,000 passing yards this season. How good has Sam Bradford looked to you this season?
This year, Sam Bradford has taken all the adversity St. Louis has had with a somewhat diminished roster, and overall, just talent-wise, they've been the inferior team all season long, outside of a couple opponents. St. Louis has really taken that mantra and run with it. They have played under their new head coach, Jeff Fisher, and they have really instilled a level of toughness for St. Louis. And let's not be surprised, St. Louis will probably be the bottom of the NFC West, if not 1 or 2 games up over Arizona. They probably will not be able to make 500 either, but in the near future, with Jeff Fisher getting some nice draft picks underneath his belt, I believe that Jeff Fisher will instill that toughness into St. Louis and make that organization a winning football team yet again.
All right, well, my next topic is, let's move to Philadelphia, as the Eagles have so many struggles in this team. Andy Reid he hasn't made any changes, and now Michael Vick's going to be out with a concussion. He did not pass his test. What's been the struggles for the Eagles this season?
This season overall, ever since that losing streak began, which has actually been longer than the Colorado Rockies, actually. They've won more often than the Philadelphia Eagles ever since their losing streak has begun. Overall, it's just been a nightmare for Philadelphia, and their head coach is head out of town. But I believe that the one position that the Eagles have failed with for years upon years now has been the quarterback, from Donovan McNabb to now Michael Vick, that was supposed to be the heir apparent of a guy that was a couple plays away from winning the Super Bowl just 8 years ago. Now for Philadelphia, in a season that has really gone south, I believe that even though the coach says we're not quitting on this year, the players have really tapped out. They've thrown the white flag, and ever since I saw that 31-6 debacle against Washington, I could just see this team falling apart. Wide open receivers down the field, a quarterback that has really had no time to throw, and when he does, the receivers don't have the kind of energy that they did in the first part of the year getting open. Overall, this has been a failed season, and now a season that they are just hoping will end sooner rather than later. When you know that your coach is heading out of town, it's really hard to back behind a coach that has really, in his eyes, shown, a level of despair. And the Philadelphia Eagles have not had that kind of a coach in 13 years, as Reed has instilled some loyalty and toughness. Now, overall, this has been a failed year, and it shows by the level of frustration by releasing a Pro Bowl caliber player, Jason Babin. Maybe he has some disruptions out of the locker room, but this just might show that overall, for these players, since most of them will be back next year for Philadelphia, this is not going to be taken lightly. We want to win, and for the Eagles, we want to win now.
And how significant is Jason Babin getting released and now going to Jacksonville Jaguars? How significant is that?
Overall, for the Eagles, just a year out of sacking opposing quarterbacks, the most in the NFL. This was a scary defense last year. They had 50 sacks on the quarterback, and they were top 10 in that category, I believe, as well. Overall, for Philadelphia, this has been a turnaround season where they expected the same defense and a better offensive production with Vic enough year under his belt, but it's just not been the case. And I believe it starts with the quarterback position. When your quarterback isn't making throws and has turned the ball over the most times in the NFL this season, at least in the games played, that's a sign for failure. And the defense cannot bail out the offense. And a pedestrian quarterback with a lackluster offensive approach, you don't give the ball to McCoy enough, and their passing game is atrocious, your defense cannot help that all season long. This has been a failed year for Philadelphia, but I believe change is coming, and this is a similar situation to Tampa Bay last year. They lost 10 straight last season, and this year they're regarded as one of the most talented teams in the league. That just might be Philadelphia next season.
All right, one more question, Nick, before you go. Has Nick Foles been able to get the Eagles' offense started since Vic's concussion? It's a question from the comment board.
Well, overall, Nick Foles has played and improved week in and week out. We saw in his first match taking care of the Cowboys pretty handedly. Now, he did throw that interception, but in relief for Vic, he actually played relatively well. He had a down game against the Redskins, but I think he's been improving week in and week out. But for the future, and that's what Philadelphia is concerned right now, with a coach heading out of town and the Michael Vick perhaps heading out of town as well, and some other players might be on the beheading list for that organization. Right now, for Philadelphia, Nick Foles is not your future. Now, you hope he improves week in and week out so you can perhaps have a trade opportunity, but your future will be made in the draft or through free agency. Who are you going to get for your quarterback? Because you need a top gunslinger to win in this game. Just ask Kansas City. They're one quarterback away from being relevant. Overall, it's as long as they get the quarterback, and I believe the draft is the answer. They should have a top 10 pick. Let's go after one of the three top young guns that are in this year's draft.
All right, thanks, Nick, so much for being on my show and good observation about the Eagles and the Niners. Any last words before you go?
Well, good luck for your San Francisco 49ers. They have a tough competition. I believe Colin Kaepernick's the answer, but obviously we'll have to wait and see.
All right, thanks, Nick. And the NFL is a game where, you have to have the QB leads the team. We've noticed that from the Bears. I mean, the Niners, Alex Smith wasn't a huge factor in the whole team. They could put in any of those. They could put both of those guys in and get a win. So, QBs are your main goal for your team. They're the guys that lead the team. They pass. They hand off the ball to the running back. That's all I gotta say on that. And I actually have Steven Hughes on next after this commercial break. We'll be talking about the NBA, Rajon Rondo, and the Spurs sitting for their players in an early season. I'll be back right after this commercial break.
Catch me, I'm ballin'. Catch me like Spalding. Catch me like Spalding's. If he indeed the MC, vitamin like GNC. Can't see me an iced tea. By the way, we share the same birthday. The wordplay is work, but flipping is easy. So catch me, I'm ballin'. I'm sick too if you ain't catch me like coughing back when I said you should catch me like falling. Cool, 'cause most cats that I bump into.
Hello and welcome back to the Deits Sports Talk. I'm your host, Robert Dieters. And to recap, we went over the NFL. We went over the Philadelphia Eagles and their struggles this season, as well as the Niners and Alex Smith getting benched once again and Colin Kaepernick getting the start. Now I actually have Steven Hughes on the line. Hey Steven, how are you?
Hey, Robert, welcome to the show. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, Steven. And let's go to NBA. Let's go to Rajon Rondo and the Boston Celtics, as Rajon Rondo gets a two-game suspension. And do you think after that penalty, was it really necessary for Rajon Rondo to fight?
I don't really think so. Even though there was a scuffle going on, Rondo said, quote, "I was sticking up for my teammates. I didn't try to start a fight. I'm not trying to be bullied. I just didn't think the play was fair that he made on the net at all." But I feel that there's, especially players in the NBA always stick around their teammates, and I've seen that for myself in high school basketball and also observing college and professional basketball. But I think that Rondo took it a little bit too far. I think that I have to state something. Before this all happened, Chris Humphries, who was involved in the fight with Rondo, he rejected Rondo. I think that started a little bit of fire in Rondo's stomach, pretty much saying if there's something going to go on, especially against these two teams who are looking to grab East Coast dominance along with the New York Knicks and those teams like that. But pretty much he saw Chris Humphries and he was pretty much the first guy. And Humphries, he posted pictures on Twitter showing his, quote, battle scars that he got, and it's just a bunch of scratches. And if Chris Humphries were tough enough, and I know he's been through a lot of scrutiny with Kim Kardashian and all that stuff, but if he was in the NFL, I don't think they would allow that. If they would not allow him back in the locker room, because if you get battle scars, those are bad scratches. But come on, the NFL can do much worse than that. And they can have ACL tears, they can have shoulder separations. They can take pictures of that and be perfectly fine in the NFL. But if you have scratches in the NFL, they're not going to let you back in. So that's a bad move by Humphries. But going back to Rondo, obviously getting suspended for 2 games, I feel like that was the wrong decision. I feel like he should have been heavily fined, about $50,000. Obviously, his streak is over. The possible streak that he had of 20 straight games with double-digit points and assists. He is tied with the great John Stockton. So, obviously, a bad situation for the Celtics. Rondo's pretty much a leader out there. He's pretty much replacing Allen after he went to Miami in the offseason. But I think Rondo should learn from this and not do it again, because his team, the Celtics are pounding him right now, and there's a little bit, like I said, there's a little bit of fire in that moment, but hopefully I think that he regrets it, and we'll move on after the suspension is over.
And also with the fines, Jannard Wallace also gets fined with $35,000, and Kevin Garnett got fined $25,000 for escalating the altercation. And as you said, good points. Chris Humphries, battle scars. I don't get that. This is NBA. You're not supposed to have battle scars in NBA. Maybe bruises, but NFL, they just go all out. They pretty much hurt themselves. So, Steven, you make some good points on that. And how was Jannard Wallace and Kevin Garnett kind of part of the fight? Because I know they both got fined as well, but do you think escalating the altercation, you should get fined for that?
I think so. I think that, like in any school or like in any area in the United States, if you escalate an altercation that sometimes in some states could be a felony. So, I know this, as we're not, the NBA is not like some gangster play, this gang like hoodlum place. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. I'm trying to say that the NBA has been really strict on people escalating the altercation. If two people are going at it and another person tries to get it, that's escalating the altercation and making it two teams brawling it out. That's what it seemed like what last night was all about, pretty much. Two teams, it was Garnett pissed off, and you see Rondo Humphries go after it, then everything just goes bad after that. So obviously, Nets general manager Billy King really disagreed with the discipline measures Stu Jackson sent down to Wallace and Garnett. Humphries, he didn't get anything, really. I'm kind of surprised about that. He was ejected. That's great, but I feel like he should have gotten fined as well, as he was a part of the fight. And I think that he's lost a little bit of respect, like you said, with the battle scars. And he posted him on Twitter. Come on, man. Grow some big ones, right? But obviously, for Wallace, I don't see why he really got fined. He got ejected, but I don't know why Wallace got fined. $35,000. That sounds like what Kevin Garnett should have gotten, because he was also escalating the altercation. Wallace, Kevin Garnett, even though he got a tentacle and he got thrown out, he got $25,000. I feel like he should have gone like 10, and Wallace should have gone like 25 or something. So I think that Stu Jackson, the NBA's executive vice president of basketball operations, took this situation a little bit too seriously in the discipline measures. Like I said, the Nets GM Billy King disagreed upon. But it was a decision made by the NBA. Rondo isn't appealing it, so we'll just move, like I said, move forward after the two games are up for Rondo, and hopefully Rondo can get back on the streak that has really helped his fame in the last few years as the Celtics point guard.
And also, you talk about Chris Humphries, as he was a part of the fight. He didn't get anything. I was a little shocked about that too, Steven. And if you had to say Chris Humphries was a part of that fight, what would be your decision on either fining him or suspension? What would you fine or suspension? Fine or suspension him for?
In my opinion, I would have gone probably a game suspension, because he was involved in the fight, and obviously he saw the wounds that he got, the quote-unquote wounds. But since he was really involved in the fight with Rondo, I think that he should have gone some disciplinary measures as well. I think, so for me, it's one game because he is a part of the fight. He did the same thing as Rondo in escalating the altercation and made things worse. And, I'm really surprised Humphries got nothing, really. Just the fact that you're a part of a fight and one guy gets two games suspension, that's a lot in the NBA. You're losing money if you get suspended. You're losing money that the team's giving you for every game you've missed. And some games are worth $20,000 for really good players, and some it's $5,000 if you miss a game. So it's really big to play every single game you can play and get your paycheck at the end of the month. But for Rondo, especially at his age, he's been in the league for a very long time, surprisingly, but his fame and popularity has gone through the roof in the last 3 years. I feel like Rondo, I think Rondo's suspension is fine, but I'm really upset with Humphries not getting anything, like you said. So I know that Garnett got a technical foul, but it wasn't ejected, but he still got fined $25,000. But Humphries got ejected. He didn't get a technical, but he didn't get fined. So it's just weird how Jackson really did disciplines today. Or, yes, today, I should say. But, this is Rondo's third suspension. I think that Jackson was sick and tired of Rondo really being in altercations a lot. So I feel like the two-game ban must have followed up with what he did during that 9-month span. So hopefully the Celtics can do some good work. Avery Bradley will probably take over. I think if he's healthy, I think he is. So he'll take over for the 2 games, and hopefully Rondo can come back and have a good mindset going into the game he comes back to.
All right, and quick thoughts about the Spurs. Greg Popovich set stars Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, plus key role player Danny Green home for Thursday's night game against the Miami Heat, Steven, and sanctions are going to be coming for them. And why was this a decision by the San Antonio Spurs head coach?
I think because, for my opinion, and I've been listening on SportsCenter to the NBA analysts talking about this problem, about the situation. Really, you'll never see this decision made by any team in professional sports because of, especially with the great players that they're not sending to Miami for this game tonight, in Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, the big 3 in the Southwest. Surprising for Greg Popovich to even do that, especially against a really good team in the Heat. And he said, quote, choosing rest instead of playing them in an early season showdown. And that's just sitting those three guys down, including Danny Green, who's another key role player. That really takes all the fun of watching the game. The Spurs have been a team of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili in the last 7 years, or how long they've been together. Those 3 guys make up the spirit of the Spurs franchise. They have won NBA titles for this team, and sending them out against the reigning champions, especially when you want to win some games to start off the year good, is really surprising. And I agree with David Stern's decision to think about really giving the Spurs some substantial sanctions for their approach to this game. Really a surprising yet disappointing decision by Greg Popovich. And I can see a fine coming or suspension because you cannot do this. You're taking the entertainment away from the NBA fans. David Stern said, I apologize to all NBA fans. This is an unacceptable decision by the San Antonio Spurs, and substantial sanctions will become forthcoming. And Stern, he probably said that the best he could have possibly said it. So that's what I have to say about it. Robert, what do you think about it?
Well, it's not right to sit all the best. You don't want to sit all the good players out. You might lose this game tonight, and especially with Steven Jackson and Kevin Leonard out tonight. I mean, that's 9 players. I mean, that's 6 players out and only 9 suited up tonight. So when you look at it, this is a stupid decision by the Spurs head coach. And that's all the time we have for you, Steven. Thank you so much for being on my show. And any last words before you go?
Thanks, Robert, for letting me on. Sorry that I haven't been doing my shows lately. I'm been really booked with homework and other important items to take care of. But I promise I'll try to get a show in as soon as possible. And thanks again, Robert, for being on the show. Hope your show continues to do well in the national sports.
Thank you, Steven. And that was Steven Hughes talking about the NBA. Well, my show is going to come to a wrap here. And I'd like to thank Spreaker, thank National Sports. We actually got some new people here, and hopefully we'll have some new shows waiting for you guys to listen. I'm Robert Dieters from National Sports, and I am out.